The year was 2015. I was camping in a Maine woodland with my younger sister and a few of her friends. I was unable to give you its name. I'm older and have more camping experience, so she wanted me to attend, but was it strange to camp with so many 14-year-old girls? Indeed. My sister's acquaintances were Casey, Barbara, and Lexi. I won't reveal her name. I was okay with my sister insisting that I sleep in a different tent from her and her pals. We thus packed 2 tents. I also packed the standard camping gear, which includes food, drink, tools, and in my case, a gun. Because I'm a neurotic person and want to feel safe while I'm in the middle of the woods at night, I always bring a rifle when I go camping. I assisted the girls in setting up their tents after a somewhat exhausting day, and then I worked on mine by myself while they were all sitting in theirs chatting or gossiping about whatever topics 14-year-old girls discuss. I extinguished the fire once I was done. Naturally, I felt responsible for my sister and her friends since I was the bigger brother. I set up my reading lamp, put the tent quite near to theirs, and picked up where I left off in the book. It was a little annoying to hear the females in the tent next to you talking. I overheard them discussing a certain guy at one point, and then the topic shifted to Snapchat. Casey requested for Lexi's username on Snapchat after mentioning that she didn't have her. They were talking loudly, but I honestly didn't intend to listen in. 5 to 10 minutes after giving Casey her picture, Lexi said in a perplexed tone that she had been added to Snapchat by an unknown individual. I looked up from my book a little because I was suddenly more interested in what was being said. To find out who it was, the other females advised Lexi to add the individual. They were talking about how the person's Snapchat score was just around 7 seconds later. Now I was listening intently. "Hi, send me a pic," was apparently the message delivered, and the 4 of them departed. I couldn't really understand what they were saying at the time, since they were chuckling and whispering, but as they all started laughing, I assumed they sent a humorous photo. There was more stillness, and when I heard them all shout, I felt shivers. I snatched up my firearm and hurried to their tent. When she heard someone outside the tent, my sister shrieked. I simultaneously yelled into the woods and fired the rifle 3 times in warning. After crawling inside their tent, my sister gave me a hug. Naturally, I pretended that I didn't already know half of what had occurred by listening to their talk, and they gave me a detailed explanation. The random individual sent her the previously described message after Lexi added them back. She sent back an unflattering group photo with her pals, just as I had anticipated. After that, the individual replied with a photo. They said that the selfie showed an elderly, eerie man standing just in front of their tent, grinning at the camera. Hearing their narrative sent shivers down my spine. I was also terrified. I complied with their request to spend the night in the tent with them. We ended the excursion early the next morning and headed straight for the vehicle. A wonderful weekend spent with my sister devolved into the worst horror we have ever experienced. I just recently became interested in Snapchat. Since everyone else my age had one, my buddies encouraged me to obtain one as well. I easily settled into it, and in only 1 week, I had reached 1,000 points. During a shopping trip, I snapped a photo of a pair of shoes that I knew a friend would love and share it with her on Snapchat. After a few minutes, she opened it, but she didn't respond. I asked her, "What do you think?" in a chat message. She didn't respond, but she opened this one much more quickly. I put on a dejected expression and snapped a photo, saying, "What's up? Why do you not respond?" and emailed it. "Where are you?" she replied in the conversation, opening it right away this time. My answer was home. She had the chat window open since her Bitmoji was showing up in the conversation. "Where is home?" she said in response. "What do you mean?" I asked. "What is your address?" she then asked. I realized then that something was wrong. I drove to my friend's place after shutting off the chat window. It seems that she misplaced her phone the day before. She gave me all the details. After a few minutes of conversation, I headed home. Now that I was a little worried, I simply checked my surroundings to make sure I wasn't being followed or anything as I drove up to my home. I spent the night at home by myself since my brother was out of state and both of my parents were out of town. I realized that I could follow the burglar by just looking up my friend's Bitmoji on the map while I laid in bed that night, checking my Instagram and Snap before turning in for the night. I then launched the Snap map. My home and her Bitmoji were directly on top of each other. I immediately closed the curtains and turned off my light. I became paranoid because of my dread. I began to wonder whether I'd locked the front door or even the back door, but it made little difference since I knew someone was home when I heard noises coming from the basement under my bed. I contacted the cops after sneaking to my bedroom door to lock it. I was asked to remain on the line with them until the cops showed up by the operator. It turned out that no one was in the home when they got there. My paranoia was simply playing games. My buddy couldn't have been gone for very long since we discovered his phone in the garden, concealed behind a shrub. The screen was still on, and the battery was only 60% charged. I was no longer afraid when I gave the phone back to my buddy the next day and my parents arrived home. But going forward, I'll keep my location hidden on Snapchat, and I advise everyone to follow suit. It took place a week ago. I frequented Black Bear Fitness, a little neighborhood club in my former New Jersey town, until a few days ago. I had the bad luck to stumble across a scrawny, ungainly, yet unsettling-looking young woman one day who was most likely 18. He certainly didn't seem to belong at a gym. I was working on my set with my headphones on when I heard him speak, but it was muffled by the music. The fact that this youngster was violating the gym's unspoken rule, that you shouldn't attempt to speak to someone while they're working out, already irritated me. After completing my performance slowly, I pulled out my headphones to see if he needed anything. He then began to pretend as if I looked familiar, but I could see straight away that this child was only making a pitiful effort to make friends. The child wouldn't stop talking to me, even after I told him I didn't. I'll omit the most of the exchange. However, at one point he did ask for my Snapchat and Instagram. Strangely enough, rather of just stating something like, "Buddy, I'm trying to work out," or "I don't have social media," I handed them to him for some reason. But I did sort of beg him to let me go back to working out after I handed him my Instagram and Snapchat. At last, he seemed to understand and left, but not before saying goodbye 3 times. I received a snap on my phone that night indicating it was from Sean. Oh no, I moaned instantly, wondering why in the world the child would yell at me. When I viewed the picture, the child was in a strange, eerie stance with his head resting in his palm, his face much too near to the camera, and a half smile on his face. "Hey," with 2 Ys, was written over the image. Then I said, "What the __? Just so you know, I'm a man," which made this extra stranger. I've had enough of this loser already. I'm going to remove him and make it clear I don't want to talk if I see him at the gym again, was my mental strategy, and I followed through on it. Minutes after he emailed the picture, I took him out. A message stating that it was a Snapchat from Sean appeared on my phone once again, perhaps within a minute. I opened it after waiting for a few minutes. It was even more eerie. The child was sitting up on his bed now, his face more astonished and angry than smiling. "Why did you remove me?" was the words that appeared over the picture. I even went so far as to block him, which prevented him from snapping at me anymore. With a sigh of relief, I dropped my phone onto the desk. After 30 minutes, my phone rings and says, "Sean added you as a friend," followed by Snapchat from Sean. In fact, he created a new account. My heart fell as I opened the snap. The image was of my front yard. The words, "Answer me, __," were written over it. How did he find my address? Was the first question that sprang to mind. Then it dawned on me that Snapchat had added a new map tool that allows you to view your friend's whereabouts. I had the audacity to open the window and look outside somehow. Outside, it was obvious. I closed the curtains and the window and began thinking about dialing 911. At that moment, I heard taps on the window. After taking a deep breath, I quickly raised the window and the blinds and dragged the child by the neck into my room. Before he passed out, I gave him several punches to the face. I just dialed 911. He was awake by the time they got there, swearing at me, and said he would return to murder me. The police heard everything. The child was a fool, so I didn't even need to argue. I just relocated out of state a few days ago, so fortunately, the time was ideal. My main concern is that I don't want to have to create a new Snapchat account, but I won't be able to tell if someone else is secretly that Sean child again if they add me to the app.